Well, I've been conscious that some of my most recent videos have been very, very complex and lengthy, and I always try to get my videos under 15 minutes, and I've been consistently failing recently just because the proverbs involved have required so much. So I'm kind of relieved and delighted to say that Proverb 14 is a very straightforward one. It's actually a really handy little piece of advice. Gary Kishelny often kind of refers to it as well. It's just we want to try and avoid putting our blots in front of stacked points. So Mitchy's proverb is avoid stacked points. So let me show you what I mean by stack point. We've done this already, but just to reiterate, this is just a simple position that I've extrapolated from a full game, just where we have a situation where we're white and we're bearing into the bottom right, and we've suddenly come up against that big candlestick of four black checkers. So that's what's called a stack of points, where you have four or more checkers and a point black is stacked there. Now you can compare that to what's called a stripped point, which is this one, where black is only two checkers. We want to try and leave our blots in front of stripped checkers. Black still owns that point. You know, if they had only had one checker on it, it'd be called a blot. This isn't. This is black's point, but it's called a stripped point with only the two checkers on it. And black is far weaker with a stripped point than with a stacked point. Because if you look at it, we know when there's a 4 points, if they hit us, well, look, they still own the other point. But if we're in front of the stripped point and they hit us, well, now they've actually left two blots, and assuming that this is just part of another game, we have more checkers there. They're vulnerable and they've lost control of that point as well. So Mitchy gives two examples. This is the first of them. This comes in the very opening game, and it's a very, I just find this an interesting way of thinking of it. This is the very first move of the game, and we roll a 6 and a 2. And if you know your opening moves, you know the correct move is come out with a 6 and down with the 2. We don't come out with the 6 and then run on further. And this is a whole new way of understanding. If you look at it, if we ran our rearmost back checker with the 6 and the 2, we now leave it in the nearest black point in front of it has 5 checkers. Down the bottom left there, the black point there has 5 checkers on it. It's heavily stacked. They would love to unstack that. They could hit us very easily and still have complete control of the midfield, and it really suit them. So for that reason, we don't. We leave our checker back there in front of the 8 point, which is only 3 checkers on it. So it's not stripped, but it's not strong either. It's not stacked. So that's why we leave the rear checker that we brought forward with the 6. We just leave it there and we don't run it any further to the stacked point. And that's, as you see, it's not a disastrous error, but 23 millipoints of PR. I'm going to show you how that'll all add up, because what Mitchy does very cleverly is he says, well, look, if you take this point and we just change it slightly, so instead of us going first with a 6 and a 2, we're going to go second, and our opponent has rolled a 5 and a 1. And with the 5 and a 1, black will put themselves in this situation. They'll come down with their midpoint with the 5 and then split at the back. Now if we run our back checker forward with the 6, we're leaving it there in front of a much more stacked 8 point. We don't like that stacked 8 point. So for this reason, it's right this time to move on that little bit more. And if you look, it's only a 30 millipoint difference. But if you add up the 30 millipoint difference and the 23 millipoint difference, suddenly you're getting the PR differences are kind of building up. So we might as well know that opening response and get it right. Now, the one thing I would say is I've went around trying to look at, as I always do with each of Mitchy's proverbs, I kind of look at, well, what does other commentators say? And both Mitchy, this is Mitchy's second position, and the other commentators, the one thing I'd say is, if we're looking at the opening game, there was very little about the opening game, stack points in the opening game. It's much more about later on in the game. But it's still such a good little principle to bear in mind that I think it's worth doing. But Mitchy gives this as the second position. We have a checker in the bar there, so we're white as usual, bearing into the bottom right as usual, and we've rolled a 5 and a 3. And don't forget we have a checker on the bar, so we have to use the 3 to come in. We've no choice about that. But the question is, how do we play a 5? And there's options. You could hit playing 6 to 1 there. Look at down the bottom right in our own. We could hit black's checker, but we don't have a lot of resources to cover that. It's far more likely that black will hit us back before we can get that safely covered. So we kind of might discard that move. We might think, well, look, we can, that blot on the top left on our 14 point. We can play the 5 down from there. Black might hit us with a 6, but hopefully they won't roll a 6. But look at Black's home board in the top right there. And our poor little white blot up there on the top right is facing the stacked 6. Black has a stacked 6 point. So they've lots of potential. They'd love to unstack that 6 point by hitting us. And for that reason, we don't like leaving our blot there. So we'll put the 1 back from the 14 point. And the correct move is actually to move it further forward with the 5. And that looks a bit disastrous. You know, we're giving Black 2 shots on us, not just 1. And I heard nothing to do with stacked points, but I just heard an interesting comment on a YouTube or chat at one stage. Someone was saying about we are inherently, it's a really good way of looking at it, we are inherently as humans risk averse. So we look at that position like that and think, God, why would I give Black 2 shots when I can only give them 1, or I only need to give them 1? But we have to get over that. When you're playing backgammon, you have to get over that risk averse human tendency and say, well, look, which is the long term going to be the best move for us? And the simple thing is here, yes, you're giving Black 2 shots there. If Black doesn't hit you, well, then we're probably hopefully away and we're kind of going to be able to kind of bring our checkers in safely. But if Black hits you, in order to hit you, they have to break their point at the bottom left. They have to break their 13 point. It's the only way they're going to hit you. So suddenly they give up all control of the midfield. There's 3, spots in their home board that we can come in on. We can then probably hit their remaining blot in the midfield, and we have complete control of the midfield now. So for Black, I wonder actually if Black were to roll a roll that could hit you, would they be better off not hitting you because they'd be giving up the midfield so easily? So while that may look like a scary to leave it, if you look that Black does not have a stacked point down on their 13 point in the bottom left there, they have very much a stripped point. So that if they hit you, they break that, and they're vulnerable on the way back. So we just have to get over the scariness of it and realize that we're dealing with a stripped midpoint rather than a stacked midpoint. So we're very strong here. And if you look at the size of the blunder to do anything else, 270 millipoints is a massive mega blunder. So it might look like scary, but it's absolutely the only thing to do. Now, Gary Kishelny in Sunny Florida Backgammon Club, he does this position. Again, it's not an early game position, but I just thought it was quite instructive, where we've rolled a 5 and a 2, and there's options we can do here. It's a mutual holding game, so you could say, well, look, let's play safe. So we'll just play 1 down from our midpoint and then just move it on to... That's grand, but we've just stacked our 6 point. We're trying to unstack, and here we've stacked again. Surely couldn't be a good thing to do. It leaves us very inflexible. We're probably giving Black time to build up their home board, and then we're going to be so inflexible, we're going to be hit at some stage anyway. So we might say, well, look, are there options that could leave a blot? So we could come down with the from the midpoint as before and just run one of our rearmost checkers there, or alternatively, we could go run the rearmost checker from 18 to 13 and then down to 11 and leave the checker there. So the question is really, do we like this position here, or do we like that position there? Well, the clue is in the name of this video: avoid stacked points. If we do this move, the blot up in the top left there, our white blot, is facing into a Black's midpoint down the bottom left. Has 4 checkers on it, so it's stacked. They could hit us and they'd still control the midpoint and be able to kind of move safely in. Whereas if we do the second alternative, look at down the bottom middle there, the 2 black checkers there on our bar point. They might roll a roll that would hit us, but if they do, well, then they're going to have to break their anchor there, and that's really good for us. So I said the moral of the story, the whole theme of this video is avoid stacked points, play it into strip points. It's a very easy concept, but just interesting to watch. So for that reason, that's the right move. There's 39 millipoints in the difference of doing the more dangerous move. That the playing from 13 to 6 is actually in between them. But it's that concept of avoiding stacked points. Finally, the last position comes from Mark Olsen at Backgammon Galaxy, a little YouTube clip that he did on block placement theory, he's just got 2 points. The other point is that if you have to leave a blot, try and leave it in a point that's good for us. Paul McGreal used to say, leave the checker where it best belongs. But he also deals with this idea of avoiding stacked points and really playing into strip points. So we've played a 5 and a 3. Now we're going to have to hit. We're with the 3. That black blot in the top right here. We just have to hit with the 3. Just there's no way around it. But what do we do with the 5? We have an option. We can bring it down there and safe. But look what we do to our blot at the back there. Our single white checker up the top right. It's facing 2 walls of big black stacked points. So we're doing exactly not what we don't need to do. Whereas alternatively, if you go back to the starting again, we hit. If we run that checker that has just hit the black blot forward, yes, we're leaving 2 blots in front of black's point, but very much like Mitchie's position before. Were black to hit us, look at the gap there would be if black hit us and we could take control of our midfield. We'd completely control the midfield. And for that reason, that's the right thing to do. And it's, again, not a huge blunder or anything to do safer play, but we might as well play the right play, which is to play into the strip point. But this is what Mark Olsen does that I really like. If you look, that was the starting position we just looked at. Now, if you look at black's 8 point, they've got 4 checkers there. Up in the top left-hand quadrant, on black's 8 point, there are 4 black checkers there on the nice little candlestick there. If we took 2 of those checkers, we move them back to their midpoint. So their midpoint, which is down the bottom left, has only 2 checkers on it. If we took 2 from the 8 point and move them back to the midpoint like this, it changes everything. Because watch what happens now. Again, with the 3, we have to hit. Really, it would be obvious not to, now. But now, if we were to run our back checker forward, now we've brought it in the line of fire of a stacked point, and black can hit us and still can keep control of their midpoint. The big essence of this is that it's not that we're worrying about being hit. It's with a stripped point, black has to give up their point. They break up their point and lose it. Whereas with a stacked point, they can hit us and keep their original position as well. And that's the key to this position. So we don't do that. We put it back there, and instead we play the safer move. And it just strikes me, even looking at this. Now, if you look at our blot in the top right here, yes, it's facing into one kind of line of stacked checkers and black's 6 point, but black's 8 point is now stripped. So we're leaving it where the stripped point is, much more in line of fire, the stripped point. And black doesn't want to lose their 8 point. So for that reason, it's just so much safer there. And again, well, it's quite a significant, if move the 2 checkers forward is now 52 millipoint error, it's quite significant. But it's not so much about the error and what XG says, it's more just about getting the principle of why it is the right play. So, that's that. Proverb 14 over and done with, nice and quickly. Very simple. Just avoid stacked points. If you're leaving a blot, try and leave the blot in front of a stripped point rather than a stacked point. Handy little tip. As I said, it seemed to come up the more I looked into it later in the game than the opening game, but such a good little tip that I just thought I'd cover it anyway.